Section 10 of Scott's Last Expedition, Volume 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Scott's Last Expedition, Volume 1. The Journals of Robert Falcon Scott, arranged by Leonard Huxley. Chapter 5. Depot Lane to 110 Camp. Tuesday, January 24th. People were busy in the hut all last night. We got away at 9 a.m. A boat from the Terra Nova fetched the western party and myself as the ponies were led out of the camp. Meares and Wilson went ahead of the ponies to test the track. On board the ship, I was taken in to see Lilly's catch of sea animals. It was wonderful. Quantities of sponges, isopods, pentapods, large shrimps, corals, etc., etc. But the pièce de résistance was the capture of several buckets full of cephalodiscus, of which only 7 pieces had been previously caught. Lilly is immensely pleased, feeling that it alone repays the whole enterprise. In the forenoon we skirted the island, getting 30 and 40 fathoms of water north and west of Inaccessible Island. With a telescope we could see the string of ponies steadily progressing over the sea ice past the Razorback Islands. As soon as we saw them well advanced, we steamed on to the glacier tongue. The open water extended just round the corner, and the ship made fast in the narrow angle made by the sea ice with the glacier, her port side flush with the surface of the latter. I walked over to meet the ponies whilst Campbell went to investigate a broad crack in the sea ice on the southern road. The ponies were got on the tongue without much difficulty, then across the glacier, and picketed on the sea ice close to the ship. Meanwhile Campbell informed me that the big crack was 30 feet across. It was evident we must get past it on the glacier, and I asked Campbell to peg out a road clear of cracks. Oates reported the ponies ready to start again after tea, and they were led along Campbell's road, their loads having already been taken on the floe. All went well until the animals got down on the floe level, and Oates led across an old snowed-up crack. His and the next pony got across, but the third made a jump at the edge and sank to its stomach in the middle. It couldn't move, and with such struggles as it made, it sank deeper till only its head and forelegs showed above the slush. With some trouble we got ropes on these, and hauling together, pulled the poor creature out, looking very weak and miserable, and trembling much. We led the other ponies round farther to the west, and eventually got all out on the floe, gave them a small feed, and started them off with their loads. The dogs meanwhile gave some excitement. Starting on hard ice with a light load, nothing could hold them, and they dashed off over everything. It seemed wonderful that we all reached the floe in safety. Wilson and I drive one team, whilst Evans and Meares drive the other. I withhold my opinion of the dogs in much doubt as to whether they are going to be a real success, but the ponies are going to be real good. They work with such extraordinary steadiness, stepping out briskly and cheerfully, following in each other's tracks. The great drawback is the ease with which they sink in soft snow. They go through in lots of places where the men scarcely make an impression. They struggle pluckily when they sink, but it is trying to watch them. We came with the loads noted below, and 1 bale of fodder, 105 pounds, added to each sledge. We are camped 6 miles from the glacier and 2 from Hut Point. A cold east wind. Tonight the temperature 19 degrees. Autumn party to start January 25th, 1911. 12 men, 8 ponies, 26 dogs. Footnote: viz. Atkinson and Crayon, who were left at Safety Camp. E. Evans, Ford, and Keohane, who returned with the weaker ponies on February 13th, Meares and Wilson with the dog teams, and Scott, Bowers, Oates, Cherry Garrard, and Lashley. First load estimated 5,385 pounds, including 14 weeks' food and fuel for men. Taken to cache, No. 1. Ship transports following to Glacier Tongue. 130 bales compressed fodder, 13,650 pounds. 24 cases dog biscuit, 1,400 pounds. 10 sacks of oats, 1,600 pounds, ? Total, 16,650 pounds. Teams returned to ship to transport this load to cache No. 1. Dog teams also take on 500 pounds of biscuit from Hut Point. Pony sledges, pounds. On all sledges, sledge with straps and tank, 52 pounds. Pony furniture, 25 pounds. Driver ski and sleeping bag, etc., 40 pounds. Numbers 1 and 5. Cooker and Primus instruments, 40 pounds. Note from the glossary: Primus, a portable stove for cooking. End of note. Tank containing biscuit, 172. Sack of oats, 160. Tent and poles, 28. Alpine rope, 5. 1 oil can and spirit can, 15. Total, 537. Numbers 2 and 6. Oil, 100. Tank contents, food bags, 285. Ready provision bag, 63. 2 picks, 20. Total, 468. Numbers 3 and 7. Oil, 100. Tank contents, biscuit, 196. Sack of oats, 160. 2 shovels, 9. Total, 465. Numbers 4 and 8. Box with tools, and such, 35. Cookers, and such, 105. Tank contents, food bags, 252. Sack of oats, 160. 3 long bamboos and spare gear, 15. Total, 567. Spare gear per man: 2 pairs under socks, 2 pairs outer socks, 1 pair hair socks, 1 pair night socks, 1 pajama jacket, 1 pajama trousers, 1 woolen mitts, 2 finnesko. Skein equals 10 pounds. Books, diaries, tobacco, and such, 2. Total, 12 pounds. Dress: vest and drawers, woolen shirt, jersey, balaclava, wind suit, 2 pair socks, ski boots. Dogs, No. 1. Sledge straps and tanks, 54 pounds. Driver's ski and bags, 80. Cooker, Primus, and instruments, 50. Tank contents, biscuit, 221. Alpine rope, 5. Lamps and candles, 4. 2 shovels, 9. Ready provision bag, 63. Sledge meter, 2. Total, 488 pounds. No. 2. Sledge straps and tanks, 54. Driver's ski and bags, 80. Tank contents, food bags, 324. Tent and poles, 33. Total, 491 pounds. 10-foot sledge, men's harness, extra tent. Thursday, January 26th. Yesterday I went to the ship with the dog team. All went well, till the dogs caught sight of a whale breaching in the 30-foot lead, and promptly made for it. It was all we could do to stop them before we reached the water. Spent the day writing letters and completing arrangements for the ship. A brisk northerly breeze sprang up in the night, and the ship bumped against the glacier until the pack came in as protection from the swell. Ponies and dogs arrived about 1 p.m., and at 5 we all went out for the final start. A little earlier, Pennell had the men aft, and I thanked them for their splendid work. They have behaved like bricks, and a finer lot of fellows never sailed in a ship. It was good to get their hearty send-off. Before we could get away, Ponting had his half-hour photographing us, the ponies and the dog teams. I hope he will have made a good thing of it. It was a little sad to say farewell to all these good fellows, and Campbell and his men. I do most heartily trust that all will be successful in their ventures, for indeed their unselfishness and their generous high spirit deserves reward. God bless them. So here we are, with all our loads. One wonders what the upshot will be. It will take 3 days to transport the loads to complete safety. The break-up of the sea ice ought not to catch us before that. The wind is from the southeast again tonight. Friday, January 27th, Camp 2. Started at 9:30 and moved a load of fodder 3 3/4 miles south. Returned to camp to lunch, then shifted camp and provisions. Our weights are now divided into 3 loads, 2 of food for ponies, 1 of men's provisions with some ponies' food. It is slow work, but we retreat slowly but surely from the chance of going out on the sea ice. We are camped about a mile south of C. Armitage. After camping I went to the east till abreast of Pram Point, finding the ice dangerously thin off C. Armitage. It is evident we must make a considerable detour to avoid danger. The rest of the party went to the Discovery hut to see what could be done towards digging it out. The report is unfavourable, as I expected. The drift inside has become very solid. It would take weeks of work to clear it. A great deal of biscuit and some butter, cocoa, and such, was seen, so that we need not have any anxiety about provisions if delayed in returning to Cape Evans. The dogs are very tired to-night. I have definitely handed the control of the second team to Wilson. He was very eager to have it, and will do well, I'm sure. But certainly also the dogs will not pull heavy loads. 500 pounds proved a back-breaking load for 11 dogs to-day. They brought it at a snail's pace. Meares has estimated to give them 2/3 of a pound of biscuit a day. I have felt sure he will find this too little. The ponies are doing excellently. Their loads run up to 800 and 900 pounds, and they make very light of them. Oates says he could have gone on for some time to-night. Saturday, January 28th, Camp 2. The ponies went back for the last load at Camp 1, and I walked south to find a way round the great pressure ridge. The sea ice south is covered with confused irregular sastrugi, well remembered from Discovery days. The pressure ridge is new. The broken ice of the ridge ended east of the spot I approached, and the pressure was seen only in a huge domed wave, the hollow of which, on my left, was surrounded with a countless number of seals. These lay about, sleeping or apparently gambolling in the shallow water. I imagine the old ice in this hollow has gone well under, and that the seals have a pool above it which may be warmer on such a bright day. It was evident that the ponies could be brought round by this route, and I returned to camp to hear that one of the ponies, Keohane's, had gone lame. The soldier took a gloomy view of the situation, but he's not an optimist. It looks as though a tendon had been strained, but it is not at all certain. Bowers' pony is also weak in the forelegs, but we knew this before. It is only a question of how long he will last. The pity is that he is an excellently strong pony otherwise. Atkinson has a bad heel and laid up all day. His pony was tied behind another sledge and went well, a very hopeful sign. In the afternoon I led the ponies out 2 3/4 miles south to the crossing of the pressure ridge, then east 1 1/4 till we struck the barrier edge and ascended it. Going about half a mile in, we dumped the loads. The ponies sank deep just before the loads were dropped, but it looked as though the softness was due to some rise in the surface. We saw a dark object a quarter of a mile north as we reached the barrier. I walked over, and found it to be the tops of 2 tents, more than half buried, Shackleton's tents, we suppose. A moulting emperor penguin was sleeping between them. The canvas on one tent seemed intact, but half stripped from the other. The ponies pulled splendidly to-day, as also the dogs, but we have decided to load both lightly from now on, to march them easily, and to keep as much life as possible in them. There is much to be learnt as to their powers of performance. Keohane says, "Come on, lad, you will be getting to the Pole," by way of cheering his animal. All the party is cheerful. There never were a better set of people. Sunday, January 29th, Camp 2. This morning, after breakfast, I read prayers. Excellent day. The 7 good ponies have made 2 journeys to the Barrier, covering 18 geographical miles, half with good loads. None of them were at all done. Oates's pony, a spirited, nervous creature, got away at start when his head was left for a moment, and charged through the camp at a gallop. Finally his sledge cannoned into another. The swingle tree broke, and he galloped away, kicking furiously at the dangling trace. Oates fetched him when he had quieted down, and we found that nothing had been hurt or broken but the swingle tree. Gran tried going on ski with his pony. All went well while he was alongside, but when he came up from the back the swish of the ski frightened the beast, who fled faster than his pursuer. That is, the pony and load were going better than the Norwegian on ski. Gran is doing very well. He has a lazy pony and a good deal of work to get him along, and does it very cheerfully. The dogs are doing excellently, getting into better condition every day. They ran the first load 1 mile, 1,200 yards past the stores on the Barrier, to the spot chosen for safety camp, the big home depot. I don't think that any part of the Barrier is likely to go, but it's just as well to be prepared for everything, and our camp must deserve its distinctive title of safety. In the afternoon the dogs ran a second load to the same place, covering over 24 geographical miles in the day. An excellent day's work. Footnote from Dr. Wilson's Journal, January 29th. The seals have been giving a lot of trouble. That is, just to Meares and myself with our dogs. The whole teams go absolutely crazy when they sight them or get wind of them, and there are literally hundreds along some of the cracks. Occasionally, when one pictures oneself quite away from trouble of that kind, an old seal will pop his head up at a blowhole, a few yards ahead of the team, and they are all on top of him before one can say knife. Then one has to rush in with the whip, and every one of the team of 11 jumps over the harness of the dog next to him, and the harnesses become a muddle that takes much patience to unravel, not to mention care lest the whole team should get away with the sledge and its load, and leave one behind to follow on foot at leisure. I never did get left the whole of this depot journey, but I was often very near it, and several times had only time to seize a strap or a part of the sledge, and be dragged along helter-skelter over everything that came in the way, till the team got sick of galloping, and one could struggle to one's feet again. One gets very wary and wide awake when one has to manage a team of 11 dogs and a sledge load by oneself. But it was a most interesting experience, and I had a delightful leader, Starik by name, Russian for old man, and he was the most wise old man. We have to use Russian terms with all our dogs. Kai means go to the right, Chui means go to the left, Eshto means lie down, and the remainder are mostly swear words which mean everything else which one has to say to a dog team. Dog driving like this in the orthodox manner is a very different thing to the beastly dog driving we perpetrated in the Discovery days. I got to love all my team, and they got to know me well, and my old leader, even now, 6 months after I have had anything to do with him, never fails to come and speak to me whenever he sees me, and he knows me and my voice ever so far off. He is quite a ridiculous old man, and quite the nicest, quietest, cleverest old dog I have ever come across. He looks and face as if he knew all the wickedness of all the world, and all its cares, and as if he were bored to death by them. Evans and I took a load out on foot over the pressure ridge. The camp load alone remains to be taken to the barrier. Once we get to Safety Camp, we can stay as long as we like before starting our journey. It is only when we start that we must travel fast. Most of the day it has been overcast, but tonight it has cleared again. There is very little wind. The temperatures of late have been ranging from 9° at night to 24° in the day. Very easy circumstances for sledging. Monday, January 30th. Camp 3, Safety Camp. Bearings, lat. 77.55. Cape Armitage north, 64 west. Camel's Hump of Blue Glacier left, extreme. Castle Rock north, 40 west. Called the camp at 7:30. Finally left with ponies at 11:30. There was a good deal to do, which partly accounts for delays, but we shall have to buck up with our camp arrangement. Atkinson had his foot lanced, and should be well in a couple of days. I led the lame pony. His leg is not swelled, but I fear he's developed a permanent defect. There are signs of ring bone, and the hoof is split. A great shock came when we passed the depot fodder, and made for the camp. The ponies sank very deep, and only brought on their loads with difficulty, getting pretty hot. The distance was but 1½ miles, but it took more out of them than the rest of the march. We camped and held a council of war after lunch. I unfolded my plan, which is to go forward with 5 weeks' food for men and animals, to depot a fortnight's supply after 12 or 13 days, and return here. The loads for ponies thus arranged work out a little over 600 pounds, for the dog teams 700 pounds, both apart from sledges. The ponies ought to do it easily, if the surface is good enough for them to walk, which is doubtful. The dogs may have to be lightened, such as it is. It is the best we can do under the circumstances. This afternoon I went forward on ski to see if the conditions changed. In 2 or 3 miles I could see no improvement. Bowers, Garrard, and the 3 men went and dug out the Nimrod tent. They found a cooker and provisions, and remains of a hastily abandoned meal. One tent was half full of hard ice, the result of thaw. The Willesden canvas was rotten except some material used for the doors. The floor cloth could not be freed. The soldier doesn't like the idea of fetching up the remainder of the loads to this camp with the ponies. I think we will bring on all we can with the dogs, and take the risk of leaving the rest. The Nimrod camp was evidently made by some relief or ship party, and if that has stood fast for so long, there should be little fear for our stuff in a single season. To-morrow we muster stores, build the depot, and pack our sledges. Tuesday, January 31st, Camp 3. We have everything ready to start, but this afternoon we tried our one pair of snowshoes on Weary Willie. The effect was magical. He strolled around as though walking on hard ground in places where he floundered woefully without them. Oates hasn't had any faith in these shoes at all, and I thought that even the quietest pony would need to be practised in their use. Immediately after our experiment I decided that an effort must be made to get more, and within half an hour Meares and Wilson were on their way to the station more than 20 miles away. There is just the chance that the ice may not have gone out, but it is a very poor one, I fear. At present it looks as though we might double our distance with the snow shoes. Atkinson is better to day, but not by any means well, so that the delay is in his favour. We cannot start on till the dogs return with or without the shoes. The only other hope for this journey is that the Barrier gets harder farther out, but I feel that the prospect of this is not very bright. In any case, it is something to have discovered the possibilities of these shoes. Low temperature at night for first time, min 2.4°. Quite warm in tent. End of first part of Chapter 5.